you should know, because I knew my genotype when I was in, I think, JS3. Maybe because my parents are health practitioners though, but I knew it as far back as when I was in JS3. So I've always known that my genotype is AS. So, and I've also always had the knowledge that AS and AS are not supposed to, they're not supposed to get married, or they're not supposed to have children. Same goes for anything that will result in your children becoming, having the sickle cell gene. So I've always been really cautious. If you, as a man, if you approach me and we get talking, let's say maybe once, twice, maybe first date, we go on a first date, second date, I'll ask you, what's your genotype? Because I don't have the liberty of, if I was AA, I can go with the wind. But I don't have that liberty. So before we even get to the stage where there's tears and heartbreak because of genotype, I prefer to just ask it in the beginning and move on with my life. I think compared to the older generation, I think we're beginning to get the hang of the gist now. Because then they didn't know. Maybe that's why we have quite a number of sickle cell adults right now, because our parents didn't know better. But right now, in as much as there are people that are really stubborn, a couple of days ago I saw a post on Facebook where this guy was doing like a mental calculation. I don't know what gave him the idea that if AS and AS should marry, or AS and SS should marry, I think according to how he described it, he said, your first 3 kids, you have an AA and an AS and an AS before you get to SS. So if you have maybe 2 or 3 kids, then you're covered. And I was really shocked, because I know I know there was a time in basic biology where they actually mentioned these things. But what is the probability that by the time you give birth to 2 or 3 kids, they're all not going to be SS? But yeah, like I said, compared to our parents, I think people are beginning to get the hang of how important genotype compatibility is. If you find it rude that I ask your genotype, then you're probably not my person, because if you don't care about, unless of course, if you're not looking at taking the relationship seriously. But if you are, then that shouldn't even be a rude question. You should give points to the person for taking the initiative to even ask, because I know a lot of people even forget to ask until take for example, I have a colleague that her sister they live in Lagos, but her sister came to Jos for the Christmas break, and then her daughter started falling sick. It wasn't making any sense. They ran a couple of tests and the doctors were not seeing anything. Then, as a last resort, they said, I don't even know how it escaped their memory to do the basic genotype test first. So they ran the genotype test, and then they found out that the baby girl was SS. How did you not know? The husband's there ranting that the kid wasn't his, while before they got married, they never got tested. So they just went ahead and they got married. The wife here is AS. The husband had to go and start running series of tests before he found out that he is AS too. So they have a sickle cell child. So if someone should ask you your genotype on the first date, you should give the person props. It should not even be, there's nothing rude about asking. The person is just trying to protect themselves in the future. I've seen sickle cell children suffer. I've heard story of a child or mother that broke down because her child kept asking her why she has to be in so much pain when she's still this young or when she's still this small. So imagine putting your child through that because you're in love. Love without, I think we can call that love without sense. Because you're being selfish. You're thinking of yourselves. Unless if you don't want to have kids. Biological kids, that is. If you want to adopt, then it's fine. You can go ahead and get married. Well, when you're looking to have your own children, taking that type of gamble is not fair. It's like you're testing God. So what happens if God actually gives you a sickle cell child? You start blaming God because you decided to gamble your future, be your kid's future. So it doesn't make any sense. If you're sorry to say, but if you're willing to gamble your future or your children's future, because taking care of a sickle cell child is mentally draining. Aside the pain you even put your children or your child through, the emotional, financial, physical draining. Come on, you see them when you go to the hospitals every day, and it's not really nice. It's not the thought of even gambling is not something that should cross a sane person's mind. I have seen sickle cell children. Matter of fact, I recently lost my friend. I didn't even notice he had sickle cell till he told me. He was that type of person. He lived his life to the maximum. So one day it was when I noticed his eyes were yellow. So I was like, have your eyes always been like this, or is something wrong with you? That was when he was like, I didn't know. And I said, no, what? And he said, he's a sickle cell carrier. That was when I knew. Of course, that wouldn't change. That never changed the way I related with him, because I would like to think I am educated enough to know that sickle cell is not contagious. So it never affected my friendship with him in any way. And no, sickle cell is not contagious. The fact that you'd even think that is crazy. I don't think it's fair to stigmatize people like that. Of course, in your relationships with them, you would try to be considerate, because we know there are certain foods that they're supposed to eat that will boost their immune health and all of that. But aside that is you taking care of themselves. That is not you stigmatizing them. If you stigmatize somebody that has sickle cell, then maybe you should check your person. I don't want to use the word you're not a good person, but basically, so they should be allowed to live normal lives. There shouldn't be a difference between them and those that are AA or AS, because they're human beings too.